Hiya. Um, I've got a little presentation about nitrogen and actually pollution. As we all are now isolating, there seems to be a belief that pollution will disappear as we don't use cars, and a lot of factories are on a standstill, which is true, but not completely. It will not disappear, and there's a lot of other polluters except the cars, planes, and but it's really good that we started to pay attention that we have polluted theirs. Well, this here is a drawing. I just want, before we start, I want to for you to understand that we people and everything else is all in a connection. There's no vacuum in between anything. Like here, all the air, that's not empty. That's full of particles, chemical compounds, full of minuscule life organisms, microbes, viruses, bacteria, good and bad. It's full. It's quite dense. It's not as dense as water, but you should imagine it's like that. But also, it's necessary. It's not that it's a bad thing. It's how the life is. We all live in the same space, and the space is just full of these elements. And I specifically want to talk today about nitrogen. Nitrogen is a key building block for proteins, and it's a key element for life. It's necessary for plants to grow. It's necessary. We need to eat these plants. It's inescapable. But nothing is good in excess. Nothing. And I will show you this next page here. I think you will all agree the system we live in is holistic. Everything is included, and everything's connected. It's a cause and consequence chain. So here is like I draw out some polluters. So this is car pollution, plane pollution, factory pollution. That's now really popular in the media, and there's a belief that if we don't use this, the pollution will disappear. It's only partly true, and I'll tell you why. But it's really good, and hopefully coming from here now on, I wrote some questions what we can consider, because I think a lot of people will understand there's a lot of things we don't need. We don't need to travel all the time. And do we need these masses of factories working, producing non-essential goods like fridge magnets? Do we need them really? Like silly souvenirs all produced in China and bought somewhere in Paris, the Paris Eiffel Tower. Do we really need that? This is also an essential materials. Even like there's a hate for plastic. Plastic is an essential material for making things like medical equipment, protection equipment. Also, as we are staying at home, and a lot of kids are at home, there's a lot of time we can use to create things. We can think of things what we can make ourselves. Things it's fun to make ourselves, and we can be proud of making them ourselves. The repair jobs, things we can repair, not just ourselves, but also if we don't understand electronics, there are people who can understand, who knows them, and they can be employed to repair. So this is what we are talking and about. Pollution from cars, factories is airborne, and it's nitrates. It's NO3. But actually, I wanted to talk more about pollution, which is also is a chemical, which is a chemical element, which is compound from nitrogen as well. And that comes from agriculture. Agriculture is a massive polluter of the earth. And now when we all were told to self-isolate, what happened? Everybody ran to the shops and bought food, because the food we cannot live without food. We cannot live without everything here. This side we can live without, but we cannot live without food and water. Agriculture is major polluter. Even though it produces the food, it pollutes it. It pollutes the earth. It destroys soils, and it pollutes water. And I can explain why. What we have now, you don't imagine we have like granddad's kind of farm with the grandma and granddad working with one cow, and garden with loads of different vegetables. Major industries which produces monocrops are using fertilizers, and fertilizers has nitrogen in them. But it's used in excess, and where the fertilizers came from actually is World War. The nitrates, NO3, and ammonia. Ammonia also is an essential compound for digestive system. So it's same as nitrogen, is a friend and foe for us, for the nature, for life itself. If it's misused, it can kill. So these elements were actually discovered and misused in world wars as a chemical warfare to kill people. Basically, what we have now, we have these same elements, ammonia and excess of nitrogen, going into the soils as a fertilizers. Yes, it helps some plants. It helps plants, but you have to remember, nature can regulate itself. It doesn't need this, really. It doesn't need us going with a tractor, with spraying ammonia into the ground. It doesn't need. This is an excess manuring. Creates dead zones where it kills the soil, and in water it creates dead zones. I can tell you about the water. If here is this one here is a tractor, and there we got if anyone can see, there's like massive spread out wings behind the tractor, and it has pipes going out, and it basically spreads the manure around the field. What happens is the crop doesn't need it that much. It leaks into the groundwaters, and out of the groundwaters, this excess nitrogen goes into the water, and we got algae growing. If you've seen like waters where there's a lot of greenery growing on top, that's algae growing. And when this algae dies, it uses oxygen in the water, and it also covers the surface, so there's no light coming in for the other plants growing inside the water, and it uses all the oxygen, and there's not enough oxygen for the fish and fish dies, and there's the I think many people have seen these dead zone on the news. There's a lot of dead fish. It's not because we had something leaked in. Well, we have some leaked in, which is like remnants of the agriculture. But it's not that we spilled something in there. It's overuse of manures, fertilizers, and yeah. Well, there's another thing as well. Is ammonia comes? It is basically a part of the poo. It's a smelly gas. So what we have also and this kind of battery farming, where there's loads of animals living in the same space. I want to tell you, these are not healthy animals. They are sick animals, because we do have a health organizations monitoring these farms at all times, because this is where the viruses comes from, and then it goes to the humans and infects human. But they talking about chemicals, talking about nitrogen. This is ammonia is nitrogen is part of ammonia, and ammonia is part of poo. So the poo gets put into these pipes and sprayed with the urine together, sprayed around the fields. This is especially done in Europe. It's because we have excess of animal poo, and we spray it into the fields. What I want you to remember is a smelly gas, and there's very simple identification mechanism built into us. If something smells bad, it's no good. If you want to check the food is good, you smell it. It smells okay, then you eat it. So anything which smells bad, it's a natural response. Oh no, this is not good. So something in excess. I want to tell you a story. I was here in Latvia cycling, and I cycled into the village, and it stunk, absolutely stunk. And I thought somebody have taken out manures from their cow house or pig shed. But it stunk. I couldn't see anything. It stank really bad. And I cycled further out. I cycled a mile maybe, and I saw a notice. It was an indoor dairy farm. And I realized this is where the smell comes from. That's a smell of ammonia, that's a smell of methane. And I cycled another mile, maybe even more, another direction. It still smelled. I cycled as far as I couldn't see the farm anymore, but and then only it started, the smell was disappearing. And then later on, I realized I was in the fields in the middle of nowhere, and I was standing by a small farm, just what you imagine, like a granddad's and grandma's farm with like a few cows out and about, and I was standing right next to the pile of manure taken out of the cow house, and it didn't smell. I was standing right next to it, because I wanted to I wanted to say that everything in a balance is fine, and that doesn't smell. So if you think about our compost bins in a garden, they always have a balance of carbon and nitrogen. Wet green elements are nitrogen. If it's just nitrogen rich elements, they can smell. Carbon is a dry brown element, grass, Dry grass, hay, not just freshly cut grass is nitrogen rich. Dry grass, hay, and straw is carbon rich. Cardboard, any paper, twigs, that's carbon rich. If that's all mixed in, it's about 50-50 balance, and it doesn't smell, and that's good. So any organic matter can be composted. It's starting from poo and finishing with like a bodies itself. But the soil. This is how you make soil. That's a composting process. It doesn't have to happen in a composting bin. It can happen right on the field, right into your garden, on the ground. I want you to understand, soil is a living system, same as the body, same as our society, same as the city, same as the animal world, same as the whole planet. And just refer back again to this here, everything, the body itself is a living system. It's a cluster of all these chemical elements, life organisms, and what else? This is the body itself is infinite, because inside there is another life organism, microbes, which is also like this and then you think zooming out. There's a planet, there's a world. That's all of that is classed, different densities, different clusters of chemical elements. Then I draw here that they're talking about societies and cities. Why we have these polluting systems is, we all know it's because of the capitalism and because of the profit-only driven systems. So what we got here, we got these we made a mistake. We created these agricultures, which is it's like it's factory-like farming. It doesn't have any human element in it, because what the goal is, workforce is expensive, so what's the ultimate in this system is like a one or no people working on the fields, and it's just machinery, it's just chemicals producing these crops, staple crops like soy, grain, corn. This is just like, you can count these on your fingers, but they don't supply, you have to know, this doesn't supply your full range of nutrients you need. And mainly these crops a lot of big percentage goes to feeding animals. So this kind of system doesn't really provide jobs. I mean, the agriculture doesn't provide jobs. We got the, look, my arrow. It's not a holistic, it's not all-inclusive system. It's like a linear, where you got from the countryside, that all goes into the cities and megapolises, what we have created. And here we got a system, I call this is my name, system-reliant consumers. These are consumers, what we are in the cities, not very knowledgeable really, not diverse. In knowledge and what we can do, because we just need to receive all the food what comes. We shouldn't be questioning. But a system is at the breaking point, because we got air pollution, air pollution and also water pollution coming from agriculture. This is the next scare. What air pollution, I think, is quite obvious now. We still think we have clean water. Maybe like in cities in England, this is cleaner than somewhere else. I'm not sure, but this is the next fear. What's coming is water pollution, and you have to know, because I'm referring back to my list, as we receive what we get. So I was saying nitrogen, nitrates, ammoniac was a chemical warfare materials. So what we get now, we get coming from factories, combustion engines, we got air pollution. But what it is, it's all these particles which used to be really a gas for killing like organisms. We have them diluted in the air, in the water, coming into our bodies, and we have weakened this all. These elements, these really particles, they're really small, maybe 10 times even more smaller than the diameter of human hair. They come into the lungs and they place themselves there, which causes a very serious respiratory health issues. It basically have weakened. There is like a here is the loads of chemicals, and it weakens it causes the asthma to be more severe, and loads of other. I'm not going to talk about this because there's a lot of research done into that. What I want to talk about is more positive, that it's possible to change. It's possible to change, and I'm actually going to show this diagram first. We should live in a world where there is people care, earth care, and fair share all intertwined. It cannot be just one element. It cannot be just people care. Fair share. We have some in the local communities, but globally it's driven by the profit and human greed. So, and we cannot not care for the planet, for the earth, because I want you to understand we live in a system where nothing goes out, nothing disappears nowhere. It's just here. It's all the time in a circle. It gets recycled. If you put chemicals into the system, it comes back into you. It comes back into animals. It comes back into the soil and back again. It doesn't like evaporate into the nothingness. Everything comes back. And what I want to, this is my future drawing. I would like cities to be not fully it's impossible to be self-reliant, but people living in the cities, it would be people living in the cities could be partly self-reliant, partly relying on a community, and it would be resilient individuals, and the economics would be based on human well-being, and landscapes would be edible, because why do we have parks with like conifers? There's conifer forests. We could have parks